Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Tim Lee. I'm a research analyst at Red Cloud Securities. I'm delighted to host a Red Cloud webinar on mineral exploration today. We will hear from Paul Sobey, CEO, and Alec Rowlands, Non-Executive Director of Churchill Resources, Inc. During today's webinar, they will provide an overview and outlook. Then we will take questions. You can type your questions into the chat box at any time. We will get to as many as we can. Before we kick things off, first we need to discuss the fine print. During this Churchill webinar, forward-looking statements may be made. I would direct listeners to the company's forward-looking statements outlined on page 2 of Churchill's corporate presentation that can be found on the company's website, churchillresources.com. For Red Cloud Securities, Inc., I would highlight that this webinar is for information purposes only. It should not be considered a solicitation or a recommendation to buy or sell securities. We note that this call does not consider the particular situation or needs of individual investors. Participants should rely on their own investigation and seek their own professional advice before investing. Please see our most recent research located on the Red Cloud website for specific disclosures on Churchill. So we have Churchill presenting today. The company is focused on exploration for nickel, copper, platinum group metals in Newfoundland and Labrador, as well as exploration for diamonds, nickel, and gold in Nunavut and Northern Ontario. With that, I now turn it over to Paul and Alec to update our audience on the company.
Great. Thank you, Tim. It's Alec Rowlands speaking. I thought I'd introduce this company to you. Its history was started 5 or 6 years ago. It was started as a diamond explorer co. It sat privately. We have 2 of the better diamond projects in Canada in the company. And through that period, we became quite close to the Altius Minerals people who also have an interest in diamonds. And they approached us to possibly look at some of their project generation opportunities that were available in Newfoundland, in particular around sort of battery metals and nickel, copper, cobalt opportunities that they had worked up. And we decided that we would pursue that, and we have done so with our initial acquisitions of both Taylor Brook and Florence Lake. We believe in the nickel story. We know that nickel sulfides are going to be in high demand if we have any hope of reaching the levels of penetration of electric vehicles that are being touted around over the next 10 years. And Newfoundland and Labrador are going to be a very good place to be doing that. And we have sort of become one of their stable of companies. As you know, they are one of the leaders in the global leaders in both a royalty company and as a project generator, has spawned a number of successful juniors and have quite a portfolio and a track record. And we hope to be, the next one, along with several others in Newfoundland that have gotten a strong support. Paul will take you through the opportunity that these two projects offer. And we were going to get busy in very short order now that we've got our public listing behind us.
Sorry about all that, everybody, but this slide speaks for itself. So this is the projected demand for nickel cobalt during the next 10 years. And that's just from electric vehicles. So, nickel sulfides are going to be very, very much in demand. There is not enough of them, quite frankly. Just to supply what's going to be needed is going to take several new mines a year of the size of Voisey Bay. And Voisey Bay, as you know, is world class. So hence our focus on this sector and specifically Newfoundland and Labrador. Our strategy is a little bit different than others in that, we really want to focus on high grade, high margin projects. And the reason is because these things make a lot of money. They have a very small environmental footprint. They're generally underground mines. And, the best in the world, some of them are in Canada. Raglan, of course, is now the ex-Falconbridge project that's owned by Glencore. This is one of the best, highest grade base metal mines in the world. Produces about 40,000 tons of nickel concentrate a year. Voisey Bay, of course, that you all know, and Labrador, also not quite as high grade, but more copper, 50,000 tons a year. Both of these are rather small mines in terms of the amount of tons that are produced. But this is our target model. These are the types of deposits we're looking for rather than very, very large low-grade deposits. I've put the proven and probable reserves for both here on the slide. So as you can see, Raglan, 10 million tons of 2.7% nickel, 0.75% copper, some cobalt, and very, very good PGM numbers. That's what we're looking for at Florence Lake. Taylor Brook, 2.1% nickel, 0.877% copper, 0.14% cobalt, very high cobalt. And it has just gone into production underground. And the first deposit underground is called the Reed Brook Dike. Very, very similar to what we have at Taylor Brook. The tectonic setting of our projects and those two mines I just mentioned, we're at the edge of the Canadian Shield, at the edge of the Craton. This is where mountains form. This is where lots of magmatic systems are producing all styles of mineralization, but world-class nickel deposits, most importantly for us. So Florence Lake, this is an ex-Falconbridge project. Altius acquired it about 4 years ago. This is really what got us interested here. This intersection in hole 9202, drilled by Falconbridge, 2.19% nickel, 0.22% copper, 0.16% cobalt, which is very high, over 11.32 meters. You can see a little bit of the deposit on surface here. Grab samples, very, very high. We know from Falconbridge's ground-based work that there's a good EM signature to the mineralization. And so our first phase of exploration is going to include flying the absolute state-of-the-art VTEM survey, which is a geotech system, the best time domain EM system in the world. We'll be flying that during September of this year to better characterize the project and the mineralization. Where it is it's about midway between Happy Valley Goose Bay, the major city in Labrador, and the Voisey Bay mine. Alec mentioned it's close to tidewater, and this is very important. It's actually within 15 kilometers of the ocean along a fjord. Very, very similar to both Voisey Bay and Raglan, which, as you know, ship directly from the mine. And there's communities nearby that have scheduled flights and ferries and freighter service and all that sorts of thing that can help make the project very, very affordable by remote Canadian standards. It's just not that remote. And one of the reasons we really like where it is the drilling contractor we're going to use is the contractor that Vale uses at Voisey Bay. They're called Faraco. They have 12 rigs up there and a major carry-on such that, our rig won't be that far away. And of course, I don't think I have to tell you anybody that Newfoundland is a very, very hot jurisdiction, a very mining-friendly jurisdiction. And most importantly to us, I would say, is that it's also Altius's home turf. And they are being very, very helpful. The guys there, Lawrence Winter, Chad Wells, and the two Rodericks, Smith and Churchill, both geos are very, very helpful in terms of us getting started up there. So I mentioned a bit about the infrastructure. This is tidewater, and this is really important. So it's a very, very similar situation to Voisey Bay, about 15 kilometers down to the property. The community of Postville here has an airport. It has a hotel. It has, daily flights up from Goose Bay and St. John's, so all of it makes it that much easier to function in. So the geology, this is typical Archean greenstone belt geology. It's a little sliver of greenstone belt within the younger Labrador rocks. Very, very old greenstone belts. These are the same ones that are found across the Strait of Greenland in Greenland. highly prospective for gold and for base metals, typical of, the Abitibi, of Timmins or that sort of area. Within the northern block here that we have, the Florence Lake block, are all the known nickel showings. The one that's received the most attention is called Bakey. It is right there. So this is basically the ultramafic flows that have resulted in the nickel showings. And at Bakey, there's been enough work to suggest that a deposit exists that still has to be delineated by ourselves. So that's really going to be one of our focuses moving forward. As I mentioned, these are basically volcanic deposits. Basically, you're looking at a cross section here. This is a flow, a volcanic flow, ultramafic, so very rich in iron and magnesium and nickel sulfides. And the deposits actually occur down at the base, down here. So this is one down in Australia, but this is the model. We're looking at the bottom of these volcanic flows to find the nickel sulfide mineralization, and that's where it's found in nature. So here we are taking a look at the present geophysics. It's very coarse. We are going to improve upon this with much more closely spaced lines, and we'll be doing an EM survey. It's difficult for you to see, but this area here is the Bakey showing, and that's where Falconbridge has done most of their drilling. It's been drilled down to about 100 meters depth and about 100 meters along strike, consistently mineralized, and some really interesting intersections that we are going to move off of with our new geophysics. I mentioned some great intersections. Hopefully you can see this, but in red I've outlined I've outlined the higher grade nickel intersection. So anything above 2% nickel is here in red. It gets up to, 8.5% here, which is an included intersection in the long one, the 2.19 over 11 meter intersections. A lot of good intersections. What we have to do is follow this structure down. That seems to be the deposit. It's a little bit more disseminated mineralization out at the edges, but the heart of these things is always very high grade. Taylor Brook was the first property we optioned from Altius, and this was our qualifying transaction. So it's further south on the island of Newfoundland, out near the Deer Lake Airport on the west coast. Grossmorn National Park is probably very famous, and that is just to the west of us. So Taylor Brook is different. It's a different style of mineralization. It's more like Boise Bay or like Rio Tinto's Eagle deposit out in Michigan, or Talon's Tamarack deposit in Minnesota. These are magmatic nickel sulfide deposits that are associated with intrusive rocks rather than extrusive rocks. So they're associated with mafic to ultramafic intrusives like gabbros and peridotite and these sorts of things. And that's what we have out here at Taylor Brook. The location, again, is very attractive to us, and one of the selling features in that it's close to tidewater. It's close to the airport at Deer Lake, about 60 kilometers. 100 kilometers down to the major port at Corner Brook, which is here. So very good location, and just off the Trans-Canada Highway. There's numerous mines in the area, including the Rambler copper silver mine up north of us, and I worked there previously in my career. Mineralization here, again, real high grade stuff. This intersection here, 4.25 meters of 1.6% nickel, 0.36% copper, good cobalt grade. So very high value mineralization. And our job is to put together some tons. It actually outcrops. It was found when new logging roads went in, and you can see a couple pictures here of the mineralization. Again, it has a good VTEM response, and we finished the VTEM survey on this area in March, but we actually have the equipment coming back, and I'll explain that, and that's because we've expanded the property. So since we did our initial work, we discovered that there's potential to the south of the original Altius property, and we've added on Taylor Brook South, which is in Churchill's name, but all part of the option agreement with Altius. And I'm showing you a little bit of the infrastructure on this slide, but you can see the Trans-Canada Highway going by Springdale, which is a major community not far away. There's a drilling contractor in Springdale that I'm going to be seeing next month. And the Deer Lake Airport, of course, is very close. And the Trans-Canada has numerous motels and hotels and that sort of thing along it. So the geology I mentioned is a major gabbroic intrusive. And that's it here. It sits on the property about like that. It dips gently to the, or quite steeply, I should say, to the southwest. And the known mineralization is right here. This is an area called the Leyden Showing. It's actually a dike, an ultramafic dike. And you can see on the section on the left here that it's actually come up as a separate intrusive. We believe it's related to the gabbro, but you know, we have to test it at deeper depths in order to find how it's all related. One of the most exciting things we found out, though, is that there was a gravity survey flown. So gravity looks for density contrasts. And the heaviest or the most dense area of Western Newfoundland was found to coincide with this Taylor Brook gabbro. So what that means is that there's something denser than the basic gabbro there at depth, not too deep, but certainly deeper than surface. And that is, it could be a number of things. It could be a more iron-rich phase of the gabbro called a norite or a peridotite even, or it could be something associated with base metals, with nickel sulfides, and you know, that's what we are searching for, and that's what we are going to test for. So hence we're bringing the VTEM equipment back. It's starting next month, and we're going to fly Taylor Brook South. We'll merge that data with Taylor Brook North. We did find that the known mineralization showed up beautifully with VTEM. So what we're hoping to find is something that sort of trends down into this gabbro density high, and you know, a system that could be Voisey Bay-like, it could be Tamarack-like. We'll just have to see what we get. But that notwithstanding, the Leyden area has some very, very intriguing holes and surface expressions of high-grade nickel. These are what we're going to be chasing initially with some drill holes. We know from our data that, and I'm going to show you our data here. Now, it's very preliminary, and I'm sorry it looks like so complicated, but basically what you're looking at here is these profiles. This is showing us that a very, very strong conductor exists along this line here. And when you see this orangey area, or like this one here, that's showing us that it goes to great depth, down to 400 or 500 meters. So we know that the shallow drilling, which didn't get any deeper than 100 meters, has in a lot of cases missed the best conductors and or only tested them at very, very shallow depths. So there's lots of work to do in this area to further refine, you know, the Leyden area and see how big and rich this dike is. As well, we have several areas of other conductors that are very close to the gabbro, here, here, and here. And these are natural settings for base metal deposits associated with the intrusive. So myself and Kevin Keevy, our VPX, we're heading out next month, and we'll get started on the initial groundwork while the Taylor Brook South VTEM survey is in progress. This is just to try and give you a little better idea of what these systems look like. So this is sort of idealized, but essentially you have a magma chamber here. It's sending iron sulfides and nickel and copper and all that up towards the Earth's surface. And once you get into an area like this, you know, that is talent, or that is some of the Voisey Bay deposits. Oftentimes there's dikes going off, and that one of the Voisey Bay deposits is called Reed Brook. It's a dike off of something else, you know, off of the main system. Florence Lake is up at surface, so it's actually, you know, a volcanic extrusive deposit as opposed to these intrusive deposits. As to what the gravity high at Taylor Brook represents, well, it could be something like this. Could be the magma chamber, or as I mentioned, it could be just a more iron-rich phase of the gabbro. But that in itself would have enormous platinum potential, nickel copper potential as well. So, you know, it's good news, whatever it is, basically. Next here, this is Voisey's Bay, and I've been mentioning the Reed Brook zone. So the Reed Brook is a dike. It's a dike of very high grade nickel copper mineralization. There's platinum groups, there's cobalt there. It does not outcrop. And, you know, the original open pit at Voisey Bay is here. And they've built an underground mine that's gone over to Reed Brook. It started on the 15th of June, actually. And then they're building another large underground mine to go after Eastern Deeps. So the point is that, you know, these dikes are important, and they can certainly be good enough on their own to be a mine. Reed Brook has proven probable reserves of 6.1 million tons of 2.1% nickel, 0.87% copper, 0.14% cobalt, you know, so it's about $600 a ton material. Extremely, extremely attractive. And obviously, you know, it's viable to go underground on it. A slide here just to, you know, just further emphasize that what we are looking for are small, high-grade deposits. You can see that the scale on all four of these pictures is the same. That's 10 kilometers there. So Raglan, the total footprint of Raglan is that. Plus there's 1, 2, 3, and there's a fourth small underground mine just off the picture. Now, these are very, very small by comparison. One of the deposits is only a few 100,000 tons, but again, because of the grade, you know, it's viable. Voisey's Bay, even though, you know, it's a larger mine at 6,000 tons per day, the open pit and the footprint, including the airstrip, very small. The underground mines have gone out this way and this way. But when you start looking at these very, very large low-grade deposits that, you know, they can be 10, 20, even 30 times as large as Raglan or Voisey Bay and only produce the same amount of nickel, or nickel, copper, and cobalt. So an example of a 60,000 ton per day mine is Detour Lake in Ontario, Northern Ontario. And you can see the footprint on it. Sorry, I missed my cursor here. Is, you know, it's about 100 square kilometers, 10 by 10. And then one of the largest mines in Canada is the Highland Valley copper mine in BC. And you can see that the footprint for it is a good 20 kilometers long. So we are really talking about very, very small operations, but very high grade, high margin operations, you know, that will have a small footprint in the countryside. At Taylor, this is the one we're going to get started on immediately. This is where we will be doing drilling and sampling in the late summer and fall. And as I mentioned, I'm heading out there middle of next month to get things started. We expect news flow to come out of Taylor, and as well out of Florence Lake as we get busy with our due diligence up there. Tim mentioned briefly that we have a project up in Nunavut. This is a Pelly Bay project. We initially acquired it because of its diamond potential, which is fantastic. But as well, BHP and Diamonds North was the name of the junior were exploring it. They went to a gossan that they saw from the helicopter, thinking it would be a kimberlite, because kimberlite also weathers to a rusty brown color. And they found it was a nickel-bearing gossan. And in fact, they drilled several holes there and got very, very good high-grade intersections. Again, in our sweet spot, what we're looking for. And what we've done is, because it's a monstrous database, a $25 million database, we hired Goldspot, the AI consulting firm, to process this database, not so much for diamonds, but for nickel, copper, and gold potential. And they've just finished that exercise, and it's been quite successful. We have staked some new claims based on their work for gold and nickel targets. And, this is a project that we really hope that we can get to next year. We have about 50 other base metal targets and several good gold targets, notwithstanding the diamond potential. The diamond potential is profound, as I mentioned. There are 20 known diamondiferous kimberlites on Pelly Bay. The location is excellent. It's on tidewater. Again, it's cheap exploration by remote Canada standards. The diamond potential, I believe, and my area of expertise is diamonds first and foremost. And this is one of the best diamond projects that I'm aware of in the world. And we do believe it's going to have its day. Both the majors and the mid-tier diamond producers are going to be looking for new projects. And we do think that they're going to come to see us about Pelly Bay, or diamond markets themselves, which are improving almost daily. Alrosa announced today that they raised their prices again at this month's sale. There's a shortage of rough diamonds, and diamond exploration is going to come back in vogue. And, we have two. We have Pelly Bay, where very, very high-grade diamondiferous kimberlites are known. And then our other project is called White River. It's down near the Hemlo Gold Mine in Ontario. And there we control a belt of diamond-bearing dikes. These are big dikes, so they're up to 10 and larger meters wide. And Rio Tinto has done a little bit of work and proved that they're diamond bearing, and the diamonds are of very high quality. So we're quite excited about this. It is also very, very well located and just off the Trans-Canada Highway in Northern Ontario. So we really think that we have, two great diamond projects that we want to realize value for our shareholders on. And that could take a variety of forms, be it, a spin out, JVs, or truly, just advancing them within the Churchill structure. So to wrap it up, our capital structure, I think I'd mentioned it before, or Alec had mentioned it, but 36 million shares outstanding as we've come to market. Almost every single raise has been done at 25 cents or 30 cents flow throughout the history of the company. We're expecting a lot of news flow in the coming months. We still have about $1.5 million in the treasury, which gives us, more than enough to get started for the next 6 to 12 months and get all these projects on the go. I think I'll leave it there, Tim, if you want to take it.
Great. Thank you very much, Paul and Alec, for a very informative presentation. We will now start the Q&A portion of this webinar. A reminder to everyone on the line that you can type your questions into the chat box at any time. We do have a couple of questions already. Mm-hmm. And I guess you kind of alluded to this already, but what plans do you have for the diamond projects? Could they be sold or joint ventured?
Well, the answer is yes. We have no immediate plans. We have interest. A couple of parties are kind of circling us, without actually getting serious yet, but it's a sign that things are changing, things are percolating. I'm I'm quite well connected in the space. I know a lot of the CEOs of the producers. So, we will bring this along, as interest increases, and as we find that either A, a well-funded partner wants to get started, or B, markets improve for the sector such that, we can raise money or we can do a spin out and move them forward.
Right. And
but it's important to note that that the base metal opportunities in Newfoundland is the focus of the company. So we're not going to get distracted by the diamonds. We'll wait for that market to come to us. Is really what it boils down to.
Great.
Yeah, I can add that the properties are in good standing for several more years. So, we do have time on our side here.
Right. One question about that, obviously the focus is on Newfoundland, but there were the nickel and gold potential identified up in Nunavut as well. Is that something that can be separated from the diamonds, or is it, I guess, geographically not feasible to do that?
Well, no, the answer is yes. We could easily, firewall the diamond potential into some new structure and leave the base metal and gold potential within Churchill Resources. One of the great things about doing this RTO is that Churchill Diamonds is now a wholly owned subsidiary of Churchill Resources. So this gives us, the opportunity of spinning out Churchill Diamonds actually quite easily from the structure. So, we're open to ideas and look forward to hearing of interest as time goes on.
Great. One other question here. What are the plans for the newly acquired project that you've just announced?
Okay, so Florence Lake, and originally, as I said, it was worked by Falconbridge. It has not been worked since 1997. But very, very valuable is the historic core. So job one is to get to the historic core, which is at the government core facility in Goose Bay, Labrador. So again, Kiwi and I are heading there middle of next month, and we're meeting up with the Altius guys, actually, the Altius team. And we're going to relog and resample the old core, as well go to the property and familiarize ourselves with the mineralization on surface at the various showings, and essentially set everything up such that geotech and the VTEM survey can get started in September. So immediate plans will see, some assays generated out of the property from the historic core, but we don't plan to do our own drilling until the spring. Because we want to have that new geophysics data. The old geophysics data is very, very coarse, quite antiquated by today's standards, and we'll be flying a very, very closely spaced state-of-the-art survey up there. So that in itself will generate drill targets for follow-up.
Great. One question that I had thought of a little on the technical side, but obviously Florence Lake is volcanic hosted, while Taylor Brook is more intrusion hosted. Is there a difference in metallurgy and between those types of deposits?
Well, generally, the Kambalda or Raglan style of deposit would have less copper in it, more nickel oriented or nickel focused. In terms of processing, you're speaking to a geologist, not a metallurgist, and I can't really answer that question other than to point out, Glencore, as you know, has Kidd Creek, their own processing facility for Kidd Creek. Rather than shipping they ship smelter product to Sudbury from Kidd Creek, right? So I think that must suggest that there are some metallurgical differences,
Great. And kind of long-term strategy. Obviously, at this point, Churchill is at an exploration stage, but thinking ahead, what is the long-term strategy for the company? Would you want to, if you find a great deposit at Taylor Brook or Florence Lake, would you want to develop it through to production, or would you look to?
because of the option deals that we structured, I should point out that Altius, if we take both of these to completion, Altius will be a larger shareholder than 10%. They would become they are a major shareholder at 10%, but they would double their holdings. So we would work in concert with them, but I don't think either Altius or ourselves see ourselves as mine developers, certainly not base metal mine developers. Vale, of course, is the leading company in Labrador. I am sure we would be talking to them. We'd be talking to Glencore, BHP, you name it, but I don't see us building a base metal mine. Personally, I've been involved in building a diamond mine in Southern Africa, and that's simple, very, very simple by comparison, so that's something that a junior or a mid-tier can contemplate, but a standalone base metal, that's really, really a step.
More challenging.
So if we have a significant discovery, which we obviously hope that we will, then we're confident that given the jurisdiction that we're in, that we'll get lots of attention. I think anybody making a significant nickel sulfide discovery is going to get attention because there's just not going to be that many of them, regardless. And we need a lot of them. We need like 2 Voisey's Bay a year to the next 10 years if we're going to get anywhere close to meeting the demand for electric vehicles alone. And that's obviously a very, very tall order. So anybody that comes up with something significant is going to get lots of attention.
Great. And kind of a review question here. You had mentioned plans overall, but just to review, what news would we expect to have over the coming weeks and months from Churchill?
Okay, so on Taylor Brook, we intend to be drilling. I don't want to speak out of turn. We intend to be drilling in the fall. Let me put it that way. I don't want to say September because that's a little bit too specific. Newfoundland could not possibly be busier in terms of contractors, suppliers, everything. So one of the reasons for my trip is to line up all of that, line up everything we need in order to carry out that program, the earliest possible date in the fall, but I don't know when that is yet. Florence, as I mentioned, we will be resampling the historical core, we'll be prospecting, we'll be resampling the showings. So there will be a bunch of assay data coming out of Florence Lake in the period of, August, September. Of course, we'll have all sorts of exciting geophysical news in terms of 3-dimensional models of the conductor plates and drill holes that have been drilled in the past and all that sort of thing. So a lot of target generation news, as well as drilling at Taylor and sampling at Florence Lake in the next, let's say, 2 to 6 month period.
Great. And I guess one remaining question on the more on the financial side. So you do have, I think, $1.5 million in cash or so. Would you need to raise additional funds for the work that you need to do within the next 6 months to a year?
The short answer is that we're fine for the next 6 months, but we have ambitions, of course, of doing further and bigger programs. And yes, we would be, certainly looking at some point in the future to raise money.
Great. Well, unless there are any other additional questions, I think that gives us a good update on the story and introduction to the story as it's emerging as a new base metals exploration company here. I'd like to thank Paul Sobey and Alec Rowlands from Churchill for presenting today. And thank you everyone for tuning in. Just a reminder that Red Cloud Securities will be back tomorrow. Tomorrow afternoon when we have Ultra Resources presenting at 2 p.m. Eastern. And have a great rest of your day.
All right. Thanks, Tim, and thank you, Red Cloud, and thank you all attendees.